All right. Good afternoon, listeners. You're listening to Lament of Hope blog and podcast. I'm your host, Danielle Richardson. And today I'm with Lindy Boone. For those of you who, just because I have a younger audience as well, who may not know Lindy Boone is the daughter of Pat Boone, who was a pretty famous actor. Um,
Singer.
19, yeah, actor, singer. What, 1960s, 1970s, all the way till.
Well, he started in the 50s, but really, it's been a long career, 70-year career. He's still out there doing concerts. But
Yeah.
when I
You
was
know,
born,
I
it
was
was
gonna say, I know him. This is so funny, but I know him from my first exposure to him was Journey to the Center of the Earth, the film, and the
yes.
song he sings about my love is like a red, red rose, newly sprung in
Oh,
June.
oh my
And I
goodness.
used to sing that a lot just because I love the melody, but that was my first exposure to
Oh.
Pat Boone. Um,
With a Scottish accent,
oh
which
yeah.
it was a fun movie.
Well, Lindy Boone is a musician as well, like her dad. And she just has some amazing stories. She has a son named Ryan and has a nonprofit that was started, Ryan's Reach. And then she also has music that she's promoting, one song being Wordlayers. Um, Lindy, before we start, because I want to ask you just for you. I know your dad's a singer, so you have a lot of the music background. Did you want to pursue that always like your dad, or did you want to do something completely different?
I never had aspirations to be a solo singer, and we started singing as a family when I was very young. I was 13. And so that came about because my dad wanted to take us on a trip to Japan where he was doing a concert. And he had another family group as the opening act. And he thought, I'll put my family in. And we did a couple songs and we all came out on stage at the very end. They were the Osmond brothers. Donny Osmond is still
Yeah.
somebody, a name you would know. And he started out with his brothers as the Osmond brothers. And so our families traveled together and we were just in the show just a little bit. We did two songs and then came out for the big grand finale, all the family, both families together. And that was our introduction to singing professionally. We ended up continuing to do that all through our teenage years as a family, but stayed in school. And it was really because my parents were very traditional. And even though in a Hollywood, Beverly Hills setting, we kind of threw ourselves into the entertainment world, they still were from Tennessee. They grew up with very traditional family values. And this was one way to try to stay together while my dad had to travel. And while we were teenage girls, we were four teenage girls, which really concerned him about being gone doing tours and singing.
Yeah.
So it was a way for him to do both. He did his own tours when we were in school, but he also got us out on the road with him and he joked around saying that he was just keeping us moving targets. And that was funny, but he kind of seriously thought, yeah, this kind of works. And it kept us very close knit as a family.
Well,
So we weren't looking to become, we didn't have the aspirations at that age to throw ourselves into music. And seriously, I never did. My sister Debbie did. And so I don't know if you remember this, you're very young, but she had a huge hit record in the 70s called You Light Up My Life. And
yeah.
that was on the charts #1 for 10 weeks. And she broke
Well,
all the records with this one song. And she's on the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame wall for one hit wonders. She never had another big hit after that, but she's had a whole career since then, singing and being in plays and doing her show. So she's a serious, great performer and singer. And the rest of us, we all got married, had children. I joined a singing group in my 30s later after my kids were a little older. And I got to sing and travel with them, but not in my sister's, sphere, but same kind of thing, singing in a group of four women. tight harmonies, traveling, enjoying the performing. So I've had two segments of my life singing as the Pat Boone family and then in the new Chordettes.
Hmm.
And I've just loved singing all my life. And now I'm in a new chapter where I've been able to write a song, and I've never aspired to be a songwriter, but I'll get into that story. I don't want to jump ahead from where you want to go with this interview.
No, no, no. Yeah, no, keep going. Just
What?
keep going. Yep.
So recently, I'd say 4 years ago, I know because it was a Mother's Day gift in 2020. I'll never lose track of when I wrote the song. My daughter, Jessica, my second child, during COVID, we were meeting outside for Mother's Day, and she handed me an envelope and she said, Mom, this is your gift. We're not shopping in malls or going into stores right now, but she said, I found out that Airbnb has changed their business model for now, and they are selling experiences. And I got you three experiences. And one was a tour of Paris through Zoom with a Parisian. One was a tango lesson with two Argentinian tango dance instructors with my husband, and
Wow.
that was Zoom. The last one was to write a song with a Nashville musician. And I
Ooh.
just, what a wonderful gift giver my daughter is. How fun. We had all these three Zoom call appointments. And the last one was worrying me because I thought, I don't know how to write a song. I've never written a song. I've sung, I've learned songs,
Yeah.
but I've never written a song. And I thought, I hope I'm going to be able to do something to contribute on this Zoom call, because otherwise, this poor person is going to write a whole song by herself. And so at that point, I started to think about, pray about, meditate. What could this song be about? And then I ended up having the title, which was a word that I had made up 10 years before. It
Hmm.
was just something I used for a Twitter account. And I had made it up. It had meaning to me. I'd never shared it with anybody else, but the word is Wordlayer. And to me, it just reminded me of a bricklayer, that bricklayers lay down their bricks, their building materials, to either build structures and lay foundations or to build pathways towards something. And
Hmm.
I was being a student of practicing mindfulness with what I said during this time.
Hmm.
And it all came from my suffering and my first real grief experience in my life with Ryan. And Ryan, you mentioned my son Ryan. He had a terrible fall and incurred a severe brain injury in 2001. So all this story goes, keeps moving backwards. In 2020, I got the gift to write a song. Wordlayer was a word I made up back in about 2012 when I needed to have a Twitter account and promote a book I had written about what happened in 2001 when
Yeah.
Ryan fell through a skylight. So my life has been this education of 2 decades,
Hmm.
my drawing near to God, my clinging to the hope that God shows up in our most dark moments, and that we co-create with him. This is the lesson of Wordlayer, that I believe that we are allowed to co-create with our own words.
Hmm.
So we are made in the image of God, and he created everything with his word. Wouldn't we have been instilled some of that creative power through our words? And even science can speak to that our words are frequency, especially when intention is a certain frequency when we
Hmm.
speak our words. So I started to really understand that I was speaking into creation with my words. So the word layer was just some little, idea that I used for myself. And I thought this would make a nice title for a song. And then I started thinking, I better give her an idea. At the time, I didn't even know if I was meeting a man or a woman on Zoom to write it with me, but I thought I better write down what I mean by word layer. And as I started to write, it just came out in the form of lyrics. I thought, oh, this sounds like a verse. Okay. And then a chorus. I did not have the melody. So I just wrote out all the thoughts that I had about this title.
Mm.
And when I met with this musician, she said, Lindy, I'm not going to change any of the words. I love your lyric. I would love to write the melody. And so that's the collaboration that was formed. And now people introduce me as a songwriter, and I go, well, I've written a song. I wrote a song. And since then, I've been able to write a few more that have kind of come to me the same way, kind of with a title, and then the lyrics kind of follow. And maybe I am a bit of a songwriter, but I didn't know it. And it's a new thing. But Wordlayer has been recorded and it's out on all the streaming platforms. And I'm very, very proud of it because of the message behind it, and uh, that it came out of my lived experience. It came out of pain and suffering first, but then I
Yeah.
also think truth is truth, and it applies to everybody. It doesn't matter what circumstances you're in. Your circumstances may be different than mine, but it doesn't change the fact that what we say matters, and that we kind of steer the trajectory of our lives very much with what we say with our mouths.
Yeah.
And that's biblical as well.
Is there a particular lyric from the song that
Mm-hmm.
you find very special, or it's just something that captures what you were trying to say perfectly, kind of thing?
I think the chorus came out very clear. It's simple to understand. I think people they nod their heads, yes, but it's something that we forget. And the chorus is, um, your words have superpowers. They can sweeten, they can sour, and you're blessed to have the choice of what they'll do. So we forget that we choose how to speak and we choose the trajectory. It's not out of our power to create the next chapter of our lives. And I don't say that it's like magic. It's not like you say abracadabra, open sesame, all these little catch things, but
Yeah.
it's how you live your life. It's the repetition of, and an understanding of. You don't want to call your child a brat. You're speaking that into them.
Yeah.
So be very careful how you react to people you love. And in my case, I was speaking words of healing, words of life, words of restoration, and getting specific sometimes with my son when he was laying there voiceless. He couldn't speak. I was speaking voice over him. I was speaking appetite. And again, not because it's a magic, spell. It's that my words carry weight. I'm his mother. I have strong connection to my kids.
Mhm.
And I think that we're supposed to be very intentional with how we speak to them, how we speak over them, and how we speak to situations, with knowing that we have a powerful connection to God, who also wants our good and our blessing.
Yeah.
So this was where this song comes from.
Well, it almost sounds to me like, in a sense, a um it's a song that in some ways is almost personifying um renewing your mind, what scripture talks about, how it's so easy to dwell on circumstances to the point where we despair or we lose hope.
Mhm,
And scripture is very clear about, well, the trajectory, even if your circumstances are hard, these are the truths about your circumstances. So it
mhm.
almost seems like your song, Wordlayer, is expressing that truth from scripture.
Yes, another lyric in it is, lay your words down with intention. Pain can motivate invention. Look at nature, how she cycles death to life. And that's our model. Life returns Will it be better for your words? Are they life? Are they love? Do they beautify?
Hmm.
I'm really amazed when I think about these words coming from me because I love them so much. And it's just the fact that I've learned and lived these thoughts, but it came out with rhyme and it came out with clear understanding of what I wanted to say. That's why I feel like this song is a co-creation as well, because I just opened myself up to receive um, ideas. And I just give me an idea, please. And I just feel like it was a gift from my daughter, but it's also a gift from God. And I hope a gift that I'm giving to people who listen.
Was there ever a time, Lindy, do you remember a time when you said, or maybe there's a time that you regret a word you said? Like, what is your biggest regret with something you've said with your mouth to
Oh,
someone or to yourself?
we all do it. And I am actually somebody that's always kind of practiced caution with my words, but I can tell you a story and I'll try to protect my daughter's, you know, her personal story is hers, but she was struggling after her brother's accident. And up until a certain point, she'd been presenting herself as a strong entity, positive. She was a bit of somebody I could lean on. She was an adult, 24 years old. Ryan was 24, she was 23. And I was pretty much, a walking wounded at that time. He was in a
Yeah.
coma for 4 months. He was not sure if he was ever going to come out of that. He was on a ventilator. So many injuries happened because he fell 3 stories. That's the injury, falling 3 stories, not sure he'd make it through the night. And then this long waiting period as he lay in a coma, no sign that he was waking up. And then just a little bit of hints that he was coming back to us, a little bit of tasting of food, but no expression on his face. And
Yeah.
all these periods, I mean, months going by. And I found out that my daughter was really having a crisis. And here I thought she was okay. And she
Hmm.
wasn't clearly able to explain to me the depth of her pain. And because she wasn't using words, she was afraid to be direct with me, that how deep her own crisis was. That I said to her, I regret these words, by the way, so it's embarrassing for me to say, but I said to her as she wept, I said, Jessie, you're going to be fine. Can I worry about you next year? So, in context, I had a son laying in a bed that couldn't talk or move on his own, and I was all consumed.
Sure. It's a
But
lot.
she looked, up until this point, she's functional, she's got her health, and she's bright and she's funny and just all kinds of promise for her future. And I couldn't figure out what was disturbing her so much to cause her to weep and feel lost. And I said those words to her. Now, those words were not intended to hurt, but they wounded her deeply. And it took her so long to ever explain to me what those words did to her. And when I finally realized that it was like she was coming to her mother and wanted me to catch her while she was spiraling,
Yeah.
and I just let her go. So those words haunt me in a way, but at the same time, I forgive myself because that's a gift that I have, is that I understand I do the best I can in the circumstances I'm in, and I make mistakes like everybody else, and we all do, and we need forgiveness. We all need forgiveness. But what I'm so grateful for is that she was finally able to come in and share with me how that impacted her. And once we had open communication and talked to each other,
Yeah.
um, we were able to hold each other, cry. I could say, I won't drop you again. I was just devastated at how, when it dawned on me what those words did.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, we're all capable. I don't usually say things in anger. That's one of the things that I have. I get angry, but I try to wait till I'm not angry to address something. And I really encourage people to do a deep breath, a pause. And what I like to do is write out. If I'm angry, think, write it out,
Yeah.
wait, read it later, decide if I need to send it, decide if I can delete it. But we all speak a little bit reflexively in the moment. And
Yeah.
sometimes it helps to just, if you're feeling um, anxiety and upset, I believe it's best to wait and say, can we talk about this later? Because we do harm when we speak when we're mad. And it's better to kind of analyze and go, why am I feeling this way? And can we learn to wait until we can be motivated with love, understanding, compassion, and still express the things that we need to express. I don't believe in holding things back and bottling it up, but I do believe in
Yeah.
a pause, pressing pause and waiting for that intensity to die down. And that way we avoid saying things that we regret.
Have you ever been, because what you're saying is something that I think, if I guess in my experience, in my lived experience, most people are not like you. So most people, when they're angry and upset, they articulate that. I even struggle with this right away. Anything
Mhm.
they're feeling, just boom. And so
Mhm.
you have to think about what you're saying is almost a discipline of like, okay, well, take this for a minute, think about it, come back to it. Um, but for you, this is a strength that you have that you don't find that this is super hard to do. But have you been hurt? Do you find that you feel hurt more because other people do not do the same to you? Like they don't process anger the same way. And so have you found yourself to be the recipient of a lot of angry words, and how have you sorted through that without,
I think
without
if you were to study my personality, I think I'm more the diplomat and the peacemaker, and maybe I'm a bit of a conflict avoider. But the way I avoid conflict is to try to tamp down the emotion. If it does come to me, if people start to raise voices, then I want to, and I'm not saying I never raise my voice, I have. I don't like how it feels. I don't like how it makes me feel when I'm getting heated. So if somebody raises their voice to me, that's why I think word layer means so much to me, is that the intention often is in the tone of voice along with the words. And
right.
it can feel like attack. And so we have a potential to attack another person. And so I don't live in a world that uses a lot of expletives. I think it's gotten very, very common for people to make it normal and okay. And
Yeah.
even, and when it doesn't carry venom in it, that's different. But it's still, for me, it's like I just grew up in a household that didn't use cuss words or swearing. I didn't hear my parents do it. It never became part of my life. I've tried to
Yeah.
pass that on in my own home. And if ever it is hurled at me, I just say that's something I don't do. Not that I don't do it, I don't tolerate. It's like no cussing in this world that I live in. And so it might seem very naive, but it's really a boundary that I set because I guess I feel it so strongly. To
Yeah.
me, it's like sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. I don't believe that. Words can hurt. And
Yeah.
especially if it's meant it in an angry and a cutting way. If it's some word that would normally shock you coming out of somebody that says, I love you,
Yeah.
um, it's hard to put those together. And I just want people that love each other to talk to each other like they love each other, even if
Yeah.
there's disagreement, even if you disagree, you can still be respectful and keep in mind that you love that person. And because you love that person, you're not going to be careless with how you speak to them.
Yeah. Do you find that with your opportunity now of the release of your song and performing it and talking about it with people, and because of your relationship with the Lord as well, how do you combine the two? Because at least from, usually those who believe in God or have a relationship with God, Christians are going to say you need the power of the Holy Spirit to help you to
Mhm.
speak words of life because
Yeah.
it's not something natural to humanity because of our sinful nature to be kind and loving to people. It's the opposite. Even if we intend to do good, we often will do not, evil instead. How do you find, especially in the music industry and in, you're trying to get your song out there, you're talking to a whole bunch of different type of people who believe different things. How are you kind of sharing this message and combining your faith at the same time? Or if you are you finding that difficult to do?
Well, when I wrote the song, it was really the only song I've ever written. It lived in my laptop for 4 years before it actually got recorded, and I would just play it individually. And the song would come to mind when I was just having conversation with different people about their own circumstances or sharing. They'd ask me about Ryan, how's he doing? Um, they'd ask about the nonprofit that we started. And in courses of conversation, if they were involved in some kind of suffering of their own,
Hmm.
um, the song would come to mind, and I'd say, I wrote this song, and I think it's really speaking to what we're talking about. And I'd play it for them. And I would very often see tears well up in their eyes. It resonates, and it resonates to people of faith, but it also resonates to people that um, don't necessarily have a Christian background or live,
Yeah,
going to
sure.
church all the time, because we are human beings and we all speak and we all know the effect that words have on us, the inspirational words or words that degrade, we
Yeah,
feel it in our bodies. And these days we're so connected with everybody hearing everybody else's opinions so easily through social media and everything. I just implore people to listen to the words of the song. It's a very soothing song. People say, I just feel calm when I'm listening to it because it's coming to everyone. It's not just that some people think it's a Christian song. I think it's an everybody song, universal song that's true. And of course, I come to it through scripture. I was raised believing in the power of the tongue, that it steers your life. There's scripture to back that up. There's also science to back
yeah,
it up.
yeah, it's true.
Yeah, everything is energetic and frequency. And so I think everybody can understand that words are powerful things. They are tools that we can use. And if you're not aware of it, you're not using them properly. So I'm trying to get people to realize that we are a very divided people and in this country, but really
Oh
worldwide.
yeah, yeah,
And we can be in one of the lines in my song, instead of walls, build hospitals. We need each other. So if what we're saying is something that is divisive, maybe think of something else to say. Is there
yeah,
another way that we can find what we have in common? Can we try to heal the divide? Um, so choosing words that are not going to add fuel to the fire, even if we have our own strong opinions and it feels good to speak them out,
yeah,
carefully find what you can agree about and let's major on that because we've always been able to work on policies and things through voting and through giving everybody a say, but also with showing respect
Yeah.
to people who don't have your opinion. I was from a family that was always conservative Republican. I married somebody always liberal and Democrat. And because of the culture 38 years ago when I married him, it was not an issue. Now, we both think a lot more similarly today, but society has changed so much
Oh yeah.
that it was, I can be, um, I want it to go back to where I can be with people of very different views and not feel triggered in any way. And we all kind
Yeah.
of, we go into our camps.
Yeah.
So I think it's a timely period in our culture, in our country, and in our
Yes,
world
yeah.
to remind ourselves that a lot of the reason we're the way we are is the way we've spoken about other people's opinions. And we
Hmm.
need to have more respect and try not to add fuel to the fire with what we say, but find common ground, look to our common goals, and see each other as unified in that we all want a society that works for everybody. We all want.
Yeah, that's true. I think I think for me what I'm one thing I'm wrestling with what you're saying as well though is that with word layer you're also speaking truth. But what if someone disagrees with you, but you're still speaking the truth in love? I think a lot of people are afraid, well, I don't want to say anything at all, though, because I could trigger someone. I could make them
I know.
worried or afraid. And so I shouldn't say anything. And
Mm.
that is going to be able to establish this society where we're all just working together because we're not going to say, there are no truths. That way everyone will be comfortable. But
Right.
but
Yeah.
at the same time, with what you're saying with word layer, it's like there are truths that have to be said, but they must be said in love. Is
Right.
that what
And
I'm
that's how
hearing? Yeah.
it used to be that way. I definitely, like I said, I was married to somebody who had different opinions than me,
Yeah.
but we loved each other. We could talk about it and then set it aside and say, okay, well, you vote your way, I vote mine. And um, had deep respect for each other.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it's not to say that I didn't think my opinion was more correct than his opinion, but as I've grown, I'm 68 years old now. Um, I've had a lot of shifting in what I think. I'm glad that I'm able to shift and think differently. I don't just have a fixed position, but
Yeah.
I'm open-minded to hearing other people's opinions. And I think we all need to stay open-minded and and then when we talk about it, talk for a certain period of time. If you feel a little like it's getting a little hot, change the subject. It's not worth it. Relationship is so much more important than being us, winning an argument.
Right.
And so I just encourage people to just speak to each other with kindness. That is my highest value these days, kindness. Um, we have so many needs in this world. I don't know what all the answers are. That's another thing. I'm pretty humble. I want people to be humble and go, I kind of have my idea of what could work, but I could be wrong. Just
Yeah.
that we could be wrong. And so humility goes a long way, kindness, how can I help you? And I also just think try to deal with issues that are tricky, just more on a one-on-one basis. You don't have to put everything out there on social media that you think. You don't have to have big bullhorn. Some people do, and that's fine. You can listen to who you want to listen to, but I think it's most effective if you're talking to a dear friend and you might be on separate sides of an issue, um, but you just have a calm conversation and a loving
Yeah.
conversation.
Yeah.
That's maybe more what we need to do and not try to, avoid the subjects altogether. But then don't dwell on it and don't sit in judgment of anybody that doesn't think like you. Let it go. And that's where I think trusting God is so important. God's in control no matter what's going on. And when my personal world was burning, and my son was in a hospital for 10 months, 6 different facilities for 10 months. He didn't have a facial expression for 7 months. He didn't speak. I didn't hear his
Yeah.
voice for 15 months. He had a feeding tube for almost 2 years. He's still in a wheelchair 23 years later with caregivers. But God hadn't lost control. This was an experience of suffering that if you allow it, you will grow. If you allow it, you will get to know God even better. If you allow it, you'll see the blessings. Not that his injury was a blessing, but there are blessings along the way that you
Yeah.
will miss if you don't get um, really tuned in and say, God, I want to learn. What am I supposed to learn from this? And teach me how to react to pain and suffering. And what it has done for me is it's given me empathy I never had before.
Hmm.
It's made me want to reach out and put my arms around suffering people, which before I never would have done because I had not suffered and I didn't know what to say or I didn't know what to do.
Yeah.
And now I feel like I have suffered. I know where you are. Let me just hold you. You're going to be all right. There's a lot of ways that God uses pain and suffering. And in our case, we felt compelled to start a nonprofit and to help other people going through traumatic brain injury. And we started Ryan's Reach. So Ryan is his name, and he's 47 now. He was 24 when he fell through a skylight. My story is in a book called Heaven Hears. My story, his story, our story. And it's still available. It's audio and paperback. But it's been a long road. And it's not a road we expected. It's not a road we would have chosen, but I'm telling you, there's a lot of blessings along the way, and there's a lot of purpose and
Yeah.
meaning and growth. And in my life, I'm not the person I was before Ryan's accident because I asked God, don't let this pain be for no reason. Let there be something good that comes
Yeah.
from this. And I see so much good and so much blessing. And we're not going to go through life without bad things happening to us. That isn't the promise. I hold on to the verse when Jesus was saying to his disciples, in this world, you will have tribulation and trials and suffering,
Yeah.
but be of good cheer, for I have overcome the world. It's a very general statement, but boy, did that comfort me. In some way, Jesus overcoming the world is me being able to survive Ryan's terrible accident.
But it
And
goes to what you said about speaking those words over yourself, powerful words. So in those moments when you're despairing, I mean, you could despair because you're like, I have no idea how this could be good. Because if you're looking at it from, your physical sense, it isn't good. But
right,
because of what Christ said that he's overcome, that's a truth that doesn't change with your circumstance, and that's a layer of a word that you can put into your circumstance. So
I
it
could
goes,
believe.
goes back to that. Yeah.
I trusted that. Okay, Jesus, you've overcome the world. All of the pain and suffering has in some way, mysterious way that I can't necessarily verbalize, but it is overcome. And I look and I just think we are stuck in time and space, right? We go by calendars and clocks,
Yeah.
but the kingdom of God is really an eternity and outside of time and space. And so it's something I can't, in my little finite mind, wrap my head around, but I still trust the goodness of God, the overcoming. And I look and see now with this 20-year plus hindsight, look at all God has done in this period of time. We've been able to, in our nonprofit work, help a lot of people get therapy that otherwise wouldn't be able to get therapy after their traumatic brain injury insurance runs out. And so we've been able
Yeah.
to step in by raising funds and help people get therapy. But then we also have filled a gap. It's a partial filling because there's a huge gap still, but there were no group homes that we could find for people with injury. So somebody my son's age would maybe be placed in a home for the elderly if a group home was needed. And so eventually Ryan's Reach bit the bullet and did a big fundraiser and got money to start a group home for people with traumatic brain injury that were not ready to go into a nursing home for the elderly. And so we started one in 2016 and then another one in 2019. And we run these two homes and we have 9 full-time residents. And we're trying to create as close to a home neighborhood feeling, not a clinic, not a facility. It's in a neighborhood and there's 4 or 5 people in the home. There are caregivers, but we, try to get people, help them go to their therapies and outings and celebrate birthdays and have block parties and give a quality of life to people that otherwise might be in a home for the elderly in a situation where they're not getting better, but maybe going the other way. And we're trying to facilitate healing and a sense of family. And
Yeah.
that's something that has occurred over this long period of time. But I look back and I go, my life, I had no idea the direction my life was going to go. But
Yeah.
I spent the day yesterday taking 5 brain injured people to church in the morning and having lunch with them and taking another brain injured young lady to a children's choir presentation yesterday and watching her face light up, looking at these wonderful kids singing. And she doesn't get out a whole lot because she's completely immobile. And it's to me, I just go, wow, I love this. This is what God has called me to. And when you figure that out, life is very fulfilling. And at the same time, I have my son who does talk now. And I have my son who eats and enjoys food and can laugh. And we can hug each other and we have such a deep love for each other. And even though he still has a brain injury and he has short-term memory issues and he even has some fight or flight behavioral issues, the odd thing, funny, odd, is that he cusses a lot. And here I do this whole thing about why I don't cuss and it's hurtful. Well, my own son, who I love more than I can express because of his brain injury, he has no ability to edit what pops into his head.
Yeah.
Also goes into fight or flight, which is a primitive part of the brain. If he feels threatened, and he feels threatened by any man that might come into the room that he doesn't know. And that's just part of the brain injury. So we've learned to live with this behavior and the way he reacts to pain or to, um, feeling like somebody might drop him or something. He has behavior and his mouth just says whatever. And I've learned that that's nothing I can talk him out of. It's the brain injury. Ryan himself, when I'm talking to him in a peaceful moment, he goes, I'll stop. I won't do that anymore. And I go, right now? And he goes, yeah. And then in the next, instance,
Yeah, sure.
it's just the brain injury. So now I've learned to kind of laugh, be amused, and go, look, it's also about what's intended. And in his heart, he is the softest heart. He is the dearest guy. And I remember all the years of being his mother up until his accident. And boy, that he just had friends coming from everywhere saying Ryan was such a friend to me. He was the nicest guy. Teachers coming to me telling me about what a pleasure it was to have him in class.
Hmm.
And I know my son, so I have to separate the brain injury is behaving this way. And but his heart, his essence is pure and golden. And So that's why I just have learned so much about thanking God for all the gifts. And one of the gifts Ryan has is he lives in the present moment. He forgets everything from the moment before. As soon as we walk out of a movie and I ask him, did you like the movie? He doesn't remember what we just saw. He lives in the present moment. And at first that bothered me so much. I wanted him to be able to remember things, but then I think he doesn't suffer grief of loss. Not aware that there's been loss. He lives now. And when you ask him, he looks at, goes, I have so many blessings. He looks around and he goes, I have so many blessings. And we list them, and it's mostly family. He loves his family, he loves his relationships. He looks around, he has meals, he loves his food, and he loves going to the movies, even though he can't remember what he just saw. So he's just grateful. And so am I. We can talk to each other. I can call him on the phone. I remember when he couldn't have enough voice, even though he might hear me, he didn't have the energy to get voice. And now we have long conversations on the phone. So I'm a very blessed woman. I know I'm so grateful for the life I've had. But it all wraps up in knowing that this world is not my home. And I am asking God every day, or actually, I say to people, I wake up in the morning and I tell God, the answer is yes. Now, what's the question? It's really, I want to just go into my day being willing to just follow his lead. And that is the most interesting and effective life I think most people can have. Just say
Well,
yes.
Lindy, I want to thank you for just, first of all, two things. You have a very soothing voice. It's so nice talking to you because I'm just listening to you and I'm like, she's like an, like you could do audiobooks. You know what I'm saying? You just have that
Somebody
voice
told
for
me
that.
that. I thought, oh, a new
Um,
career.
but, I wanted to ask you one last thing. I don't know if you're comfortable. Would you be willing to sing like the chorus of your song
Sure.
just
Yeah.
for listeners to give them a taste of this song that so they can look it
Uh,
up themselves?
sure. This is a little bit of word layer. Spend some time with your creator. Are you grateful that he made you? Do you know that you're a creator too? Your words have superpowers. They can sweeten, they can sour. And you're blessed to have the choice of what they'll do. Oh, word layer.
Oh, that's so beautiful. Thank you so much, Lindy. And for
You're welcome.
listeners, I'll have a link to the song so you can listen to it and also take a look as well at their nonprofit ministry for Ryan. They do
Ryan's
a lot of great work. Yes, Ryan's Reach. Well,
reading.
Lindy, thank you so much. I've loved meeting you. It's been a
Oh,
gift.
I'm so glad we were able to go in these directions in this conversation. Thank you.
You're welcome. Well, thank you.